Hey guys, Julie here. I wanted to jump on and do a real fun project. I do some classes throughout town with like women in recovery. I do some art time with our local homeless community. It's just something I love to do, but I'm going to do this project with some ladies later this week, and I thought I'd jump on here and kind of share it with you. And so what I'm going to do is put a word of encouragement, an inspirational word on this canvas. And these are just a couple that I have. Did like pray, be still, inspire, dream, goals, and faith. These were just some, like I said, words that I found that I thought were kind of cool. And then I just printed them up. And then the reason why they're on green paper is because that's what I had in my copier. But these will fit. This is an 8x10 canvas. And so I kind of did these on just an 8.5x11 and then chopped them in half. This one's kind of cut sideways because of the lettering. But you can just kind of, pick a word or a quote that you like. I think I'm going to do pray. I think that would look kind of pretty. And then if you want these templates, like I said, I just did these and I have them so they're easy to print out. If you want, just text me. Get that little string out of the way. And just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to send you these words if you want something, if you want to kind of create your own. Now, the fun option that I'm going to give these ladies is that they can have a canvas or even a piece of watercolor paper. So you could do this project on, like I said, canvas or watercolor paper. And if you don't have watercolor paper, cardstock works as well. So this is just some graphite paper that I've used tons and tons of times. But think of like an old school check. And what you do is you put your word or your saying or your quote or your song lyric, wherever you want. And just make sure you hold that paper down. And I'm just going to come in here and trace. And once I lift up this paper, the graphite outline will stay on the canvas. Now, the fun thing with watercolor, so let's say you wanted to do this on some cardstock or watercolor paper, is that with watercolor, you can actually use a pencil. And I mean, use a light touch, but you can use graphite or pencil. And once you paint over it, you can still use an eraser and erase it up. So you can use the outline, use the watercolor, and then still go back and erase it if you want to. So once again, this is just a word that I printed out. You can do anything that inspires you, but let's face it, we all need some inspiration in our world. So I just thought that this would be a really fun way to show you guys how to kind of have inspirational words around you, or song lyrics or a quote. But I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but there's just the faintest outline of the word pray on there. And then I think I'm just going to do some kind of like flowers, like a border of flowers maybe. Kind of add some cute little leaves or something. Maybe I'll do... So like I said, I'm going to be doing this with some ladies in recovery, which I'm so excited about. Missoula has an awesome chapter of Teen Challenge, and I get to go and hang out with the ladies once a month and share some art. But like I said, I'm going to do this. I kind of have a rough idea of what I want to do, but I'm not 100% sure. So you guys get to see the creative process. Let me grab another paintbrush. Now, one of my absolute favorite brushes for creating like texture are these chip brushes. They're super inexpensive. I use them time and time again. And they are just really great for creating like rustic, like kind of this wood plank background that I have, similar to that. But before I do that, I'm going to come in here with a permanent marker and just go over my word. The reason why I'm doing this now is because this permanent marker will stand through the layers of paint. So you got to make sure it's, you know, exactly where you want it. And I'm just going to use this marker. And I mean, I can paint a dark, you know, blue or something on top of this, a really dark color. And the Sharpie, well, it's not a Sharpie, it's a generic permanent marker. It will come through the paint, which is awesome if you don't want to lose your outline, but kind of sucks if you're trying to cover it up. So just kind of buyer beware. But once again, if you want these printouts, I have six words. Just send me a text and I'll be more than happy to email that over to you. So what I'm going to do, like I said, I'm going to kind of come in and make a little bit of texture. I think I'm going to do a little bit of this teal. I've been loving this teal color. Seems almost like everything I paint, I incorporate this color somehow. Now, the main thing with doing this technique is once you dip your brush in paint, you want to like wipe most of it off. Now, I put paint in these little cups, but if you have a palette or if you're using your plate, but you want your brush to have almost no paint on it. So dunk it in the paint and then wipe most of it off. And then I'm going to come in here and kind of go back and forth or horizontally. And I'm just going to kind of scrape the brush onto the canvas. I'm just kind of dragging the brush because I want this kind of streaky, kind of distressed look. Less is more. You can always go back and add more if you want to, but just by doing that little bit, it's already starting to kind of look like distressed, like barnwood a little bit. And if you want, you can kind of do the edges as well. Like I said, I'm a firm believer in what you have around you, you know, can inspire you. And so I always love to try and keep words of inspiration or quotes or scripture or song lyrics that inspire me and keep me in a good mood and keep me, you know, in a positive state of mind. I'm going to come in here with a little bit of white paint on top of the teal, just so that way it'll blend in certain spots. Once again, just a little bit of paint, wiping most of that off and just kind of going over some of those areas just to soften it up a little bit. And then that's all I'm going to do with my chip brush. So once again, I have like 5 or 6 of these floating around. Most of them, the metal's rusted and, you know, the paint's not all washed out, but these are great for making texture. So one of my biggest artist, I don't want to say hacks or tricks, but those are awesome for that. Move this over here. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 flowers. And I was just going to do them. I have like pink, orange. I have that teal color. I have a couple different ideas. But I'm just going to come in and kind of blob some color on. And I'm using acrylic paint, by the way. I get that question sometimes. I forget to let you know what I'm using, but I'm just coming in here and picking which flowers I want to be what color. Have one up here, and I'm gonna make real kind of generic, almost kind of like an illustration looking type flower. So I'm not super concerned with like each petal. At this point, I'm just coming in and coloring in those areas with whatever base color I want, because it kind of like a coloring book. The way that I do my flowers is just kind of like a whimsical, kind of like I said, almost just something that you'd see like maybe in a, I don't know, cute card or something. They're not fancy. They're easy. They're very unintimidating. Let's see if anybody's saying hi. I see a couple. Oh, I see lots of you guys are watching. So once again, this is a simple project. This is just an 8 by 10 canvas. You can make this on any size canvas you want, or do watercolor paper. And if you don't have watercolor paper, cardstock works just as well. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with watercolor. I dabbled in a lot of different mediums. And if you're not familiar with what that big fancy word means, it just means type of art. Like this is acrylic painting. Watercolor would be a different medium. If I was using oil paint, that would be a different medium. And so I've dabbled and played in a lot of different mediums. And when I say play, like truly, when I create art, I feel like I'm playing. My art studio in my house is just a spare room. And I'll tell Jeremy, my husband, I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to go play. And he's like, okay. And when I say that, I mean, I'm coming to my art room to paint. So if I say play, that's what I mean when I'm creating art. But anyways, back to what I was saying. What was I saying? I don't remember. What was I saying? Playing? I don't know. Mediums. My brain is slow, but it'll eventually catch up. And so I love to try new techniques. I love to try new products. I love to try new, there's our fancy big word, mediums. And watercolor is fun, but for me, challenging. The reason being is that water, if you've spilt a glass of water, you know it runs, it bleeds, it gets absorbed. So when you're painting in watercolor, even if you have, let's say if your paper is slanted, which oftentimes artists will have their workspace kind of at a slant, your water, if you have a big puddle of watercolor up high, it can run and dribble down. So it's very hard to control, which can be frustrating, but also liberating, because I'm a perfectionist when it comes to my art. More so than a perfectionist, probably like a realist. When I create things, I usually include a lot of detail, very realistic, very precise. And when I go to like an art gallery or a museum, the style that I usually gravitate towards is the soft, kind of sketchy, non-realistic styles of art, which makes me laugh because it's almost like, they always say, if you're short, you want to be tall. If you're, have brown hair, you want to be blonde. Like we always want to be the opposite of what we are. And I think there's even a little bit of truth in that when it comes to art, because like I said, my natural tendency, my natural artistic aesthetic, if you will, is very controlled, is very, deliberate. And then I look at art that almost looks like it's effortless. And I'm like, man, I wish I could paint like that, or draw or whatever. But I like to experiment and I like to challenge myself. I figure I'm going to, only be as good of an artist as, as much as I challenge myself. So I like to try new things and kind of not stick with one, idea forever and ever. But the good part of that is that, like I said, I get to try a lot of things. The bad part is that I, like with watercolor, I'd love to spend more time and kind of hone my craft, if you will. But I kind of get distracted and go, oh, what's this? And oh, I want to do that. And oh, look at how cool that looks, so all that to say, watercolor is really, really fun. And this is a way that you can kind of experiment with watercolor if you want to. All right. Once again, if you want, I have there's 5 words in one phrase, but I have pray, I have be still, I have inspire, and these are all sized down to where when you print them out and cut them in half, it'll fit nicely over an 8x10 canvas. Or if you're using a piece of paper, a standard, 8.5 by 11, I have dream, I have faith, and then goals. But if you want these, just shoot me a text and I'll be more than happy to email those templates. And this is a very, very easy project. Once again, I use graphite paper. But if you don't have graphite paper, what you can also do is just take your, whatever you're tracing, and take a pencil and scribble on the back and put a thick layer of graphite scribble on the back, and then do the same process, and it'll leave you the graphite outline underneath. So that's another way to get the same effect. And I come in here and paint my leaves. And once again, I freehanded the flowers. They're at this point, they're just blobs. They're just kind of circular, blobby shapes. But you could add any cute little decorations you wanted. You could do like mandala. Those are really pretty. You could decorate this however you wanted to, but I just really like the spring flower, kind of rustic look. But I'm going to just come in and color block, and then I'll come in and add some more details in just a little bit. And by adding the outline and the highlights, that's where it'll really come together. I'm trying to think if it needs, I'll do another leaf up here. Sometimes I kind of go nuts. I'm like, oh, I just want a cute little, sparse decoration. And then I've covered every single inch with flowers and leaves. That's kind of cute. We'll leave it like that. And then I'm going to come back in and go over the letters. What I'm going to do is I'm going to blow dry this real quick, and I'm just going to go over the letter again with Sharpie. Once again, I want to show you how I don't want to say easy, but people get intimidated by art, and there's really nothing to be intimidated by. So I'm going to blow dry this just really quickly, and then I'll go over that wording again with my permanent marker. Gotta have it plugged in, Julie. Do you guys ever talk to yourself, or am I the only one? Okay, since my paint was put on so thin, it didn't take much to dry it off. You could definitely do this with, a detail brush and paint. But like I said, I just want to show you guys how, and once again, I don't want to say easy, but how, people get real intimidated and really stressed out when it comes to making art, and it shouldn't be. It should be fun. I'll even joke at my paint parties like, okay, people remember we're having fun, and then everybody laughs. The key with using a permanent marker, though, is that your paint has to be 100% dry. So if your paint is not dry, the pen won't work very well. So that's why it's important. Like I zapped it with the blow dryer. If you're going to do this with a permanent marker, a Sharpie, or anything you got floating around your junk drawer, just make sure that your paint is 100% dry. And so we started off with the graphite outline, went over it with permanent marker, and then I painted that kind of like distressed look on top. And now I'm just going back and filling it in. So the ladies that I'm going to do this project with, I've been doing projects with them on and off for about a year and a half, maybe. And it's a year-long program, so it's been really cool because I've actually got to see some of the gals graduate. But I go in about once a month and just do different types of projects with them. We've made jewelry, we've made journals, like where we actually took all the pages and sewed them together, like bound them, which that was really cool. We've done little clay projects. So I love doing things with them, but they don't, because they're in recovery. And so they're limited on how many things they can have. So I always try and bring in little projects. And so that's why this canvas is a little bit on the smaller side. It's, like I said, an 8x10, but this would be perfect, if you have a little area in the morning where you start your day, whether it's with prayer, meditation, or just a good cup of coffee. If you have your little area where you get ready in the morning, just a little something to inspire you to start your day off right. And it can be a quote. It could be a song lyric. For me, there's some song lyrics that are almost poetry. Maybe a proverb or a psalm. But this is a really easy way. And you can, like I said, you can go into Microsoft Word and, pick a font you like. And like I said, just make sure it's sized and then print it off. And then use this same trick with the carbon paper to trace it onto either paper or to trace it onto a canvas like I'm doing. So now that I have my word on there, I'm going to come in and start doing some of the detail around the flower. So right now they're just color blobs. This is where it's actually going to start to come together. Now this step you can also definitely do with a permanent marker. I'm going to do it with a paintbrush mainly because my paint is still wet. And remember I said that paint has to be completely dry. So it's just at this point, I'm just going to come in here and do it with a paintbrush. But I'll show you how I do my flowers. Now, this is not anything fancy that I learned in art school. It's just the way that I do it. So at the center of the flower, I kind of do like an at shape, you know, like when you're at something, or just a circle with like an extra little squiggle tail. So just whatever you want to call that shape. And then I just come in and I start making like little colon or comma shapes, and make sure they always face the center of the flower, just kind of overlapping. And then when I come and I do my outline around the flower, I just do the scalloped edge. So that in a nutshell is the outline of my flower. And then as soon as I have some of these outlined, I'll come in and I'll do a little white highlight, and that's another cute little touch. But once again, not fancy. We call it whimsical. It's all what you name it. If you want, this is kind of like a double swoosh. Like when you do like birds flying in the sky, you can kind of do just that little double bump if you want. But make sure that they're always kind of centered or facing the center of the flower. But just come in and add a few here and there. I was going on and on about how my artistic style is so realistic. And then I'm like, yep, we just come in and do these little whimsical kind of cartoon flowers. But we've actually had some really goofy weather today's been beautiful, but yesterday it literally was like snowing, but like it was coming in horizontally because it was so windy. And then it would stop, and then the sun would come out and it would melt. So then literally the lawn was green again. And then an hour later, the wind would pick up and it would start snowing again. And then an hour later, it would die down. And then the sun would come out. And it did this like 2 or 3 times. So literally it was like blizzard, looking conditions. And then an hour later, it looked like you should have, sunscreen on and flip-flops and be, hanging out outside playing, cornhole or something. I don't know. So yesterday the weather was very weird, but today's a beautiful day. It's nice and sunny, and it's supposed to be like that for at least the immediate future. So we'll call it a win, but I'm just ready for sunny days and starting my garden, busting out the flip-flops and shorts. This is still pretty wet, so I'm just trying to be careful. I'm doing this a little bit quicker than I normally would because, like I said, I wanted to come on here. This is kind of my demo. I always like to take something for the ladies to see, so they can kind of be inspired, which is one of the words. But so if you see me kind of painting one flower and then skipping another, it's because my yellow flowers are still very, very gooey. And one other little trick when you're doing a painting like this is if you want, like now, especially now that I'm doing the outlining, I want my paint to flow. I don't want it to be thick and clumpy. Sometimes I'll say like paint boogers. And so if your paint is thick and clumpy and it's not flowing, just add a tiny, tiny touch of water and mix it in really well. And then if it still needs to be thinned out a little bit more, do that same step again. But or the other thing you can do is, because I'm using acrylic paint, which dries very quickly. And so if your paint has been, exposed to the air for 2 or 3 hours, maybe just a fresh squirt of paint also will give you that flow kind of texture. So see how just those few outlines really have already made a big difference. Now, once again, if you're wondering about the text me part, if you want the printables, there's 5 words and then be still. So 5 words and a saying. I'll be more than happy to send those to you. Just send me a text and I will get them on over to you. I'm a firm believer in what you surround yourself with is kind of what you absorb. And I want to absorb as much positivity and as much good things as I can. So try and always have a positive attitude if I can. It's a battle some days. Anybody else? Like sometimes I'm like, today's going to be a good day. I'm going to be in a good mood. And then like my alarm doesn't go off. And then the coffee pot, maker breaks. And then, like something else happens. It's like, okay, we're not ever going to say that again. All right. So once again, just coming in with a little bit of black to kind of do an outline. And then what I'm going to do is come in with white and do a little bit of a highlight. And I think I'm going to do a highlight on the lettering too. So you can see, I mean, I don't know how long I've been painting. I don't see a time on here. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. And this came along real quick. I did the entire word with the word pray with a permanent marker. You can definitely do that. You can also use paint. You can go old school and actually use paint if you want to. But a permanent marker is just easier. And then also to do the outline that I just did, same thing. If you want to use just permanent marker, just make sure that your paint is dry, which mine is not. So that's why I didn't do that. So now I'm going to come in, same thing with a little tiny detail brush and start adding some white highlights. And I'm going to do the exact same thing, not starting off in the center like I did, but I'm just going to kind of come around and just randomly put like a little white, little kind of comma shape. And you'll see that this is where it starts to really look cute. I mean, it looks cute regardless, but this is where it really starts to come together. All right. And once again, if you're going to do this, you don't have to do flowers. You could do whatever type of background you want. Like I said, I'm a big, firm believer in surrounding yourself with things that make you happy and positive. So positive words or quotes or song lyrics. And for me, the easiest way that I found to kind of put the outline on is with graphite paper. So I just wanted to show you that real quick. So you could do this exact same idea, but do like a quote or a song lyric or, whatever inspires you. So see, did that little bit of white in the flowers. I don't know if you guys can see that real well. It's not, like I said, it's not complicated. And then another cute little detail is I will often use the handle of my paintbrush as a stamp, and you could come in and do some dots. Just like clusters of 3 or 5 are usually what I do. 1, 2, 3. For whatever reason, whoever they are, when I was in school, I'm trying to think if I want to do dots or lines. And I think I'm going to do, maybe I'll do white dots there. Sorry. Can't do 2 things at once. When I was in school and studying art, and I was learning about composition and those big fancy things, I don't know why it's more pleasing to the eye, but for whatever reason, the eye is, I don't know, I guess it's easier to look at composition of things that are either 3 or 5, things that are odd numbers. So whenever I'm doing like this cluster of 3, well, that's not a good example. I just proved myself wrong. But anyways, for whatever reason, if you look at, a bowl of fruit sitting on a table, you might notice that more often than not, the main subject of whatever the art piece is in odd numbers. So like I said, 3s, 5s, whatever. So now I'm coming in here and trying to be very careful because I put a bunch of white dots and I don't want to put my fat finger in one, but I'm just coming in here and highlighting along some of the letters. Once again, just using a real thin paintbrush. but you don't have to do this. Like I said, I'm just kind of doing what I think looks pretty. I want to encourage you, have things around you in your daily life, in your workspace, that make you happy, that inspire you, that keep you in a good mood, and have those things around you. Celebrate pretty things. Ooh, I think I got paint on my hoodie. That's okay. All right, so 3 last little dots, and then I'm going to call this done. So once again, have things around you that inspire you. I know that this is definitely going to make me happy every single time I look at it because it's bright colors, it's flowers, and it'll remind me to take a moment and just thank God for the good things in my life. If you're not a person of prayer, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes I feel like if I say pray, or use church vernacular, I don't want to offend anybody, but I'm a girl of praying persuasion. So whether you call it prayer or meditation or just, a moment to reflect on the good things in your life, that's all going to, help bring your focus on the positive things in your life instead of just griping about the negative things. So that's always good as well. So whatever label you want to put on it. But like I said, I just wanted to show you a very simple way using a printout, graphite paper, and some permanent markers and some pretty colors, how to make something inspirational. So once again, shoot me a text if you want the printables I have. Pray. I did be still, inspire, dream, faith, and goals. And so if you want these, shoot me a text and I'll be more than happy to send them to you. And also just shoot me a text because I'm going to start using my texting list and give you guys like discounts whenever I have new things, new art kits coming out. I might even have some tutorials that I'm just going to send to you. So if you want to be part of the Cool Kids Club, shoot me a text at 406-283-4657. All right, guys, hope you're having a great Sunday and hopefully you have some sunshine and you don't have horizontal blowing snow like we had yesterday. And we'll talk to you later.